and it does not require any smoothing operation as most of the approaches use. So the problem formulation is as follows. So assume that we have a multivariate we have a multivariate signal, that the dependence between different dimensions of that multivariate signal is time varying. So for example, here we have a two-dimensional signal, and then at the first half of this two-dimensional signal, the dependence is positive, and it's coming from two-dimensional Gaussian signal. And then on the second half, it goes negative. So it's a different process. It's a different underlying process. They're all multivariate Gaussian, but with different covariance metrics. And the question here, how to capture this time variation of the dependence. There are many common approaches. We go through them briefly later, but they are based on some key assumption that is shared between all these different approaches. The most important, the first and most important assumption is that the samples in this multivariate signal is actually IID. So it means that there is no autoregression, for example, between the samples, and that helps to estimate the desired statistic. Because, for example, retrieving all samples equal. For example, when we want to do correlation, there's averaging, and then we are using all the samples regardless of their neighboring samples to estimate the correlation. Or, for example, we can just, if the desired statistic is the mean, we can just average all the samples. Another key assumption, and common assumption, is a normal distribution assumption. Again, this is an assumption that has some very common on the method and has root. The actual root is from central limit theorem. Is that if what we are observing is the average of IID, is the average of IID samples from unknown distribution. The distribution can be anything. The average, the measurement of the average tends to have a normal distribution, and that also helps to reduce the problem of dependence to the just estimation of the covariance or correlation. Otherwise, we have to have more complicated measure of dependence. Another assumption, so these assumptions are very solid. We are not tackling those assumptions, but there's another assumption, which is locality assumption. It says that in the time series, in the samples that are close to each other also will be belong to the same underlying process. I mean, it's a very reasonable assumption for time series. The problem here is that we don't know the degree of this locality. The degree of this locality is unknown. And when it's unknown, then you need to assume something about it. All these methods that I'm going to briefly overview have some assumption of locality, and you need to choose a degree of locality for this assumption. But the problem here is that we don't know the degree of this locality assumption. The locality assumption of fMRI data is mostly coming from the models that they use for the bold signal, that is neural activity being convolved with a slow varying hemodynamically driven filter. For example, in terms of frequency, if you want to think about that, is most of the time in many studies they assume that all the bold related activity are only up to 0.1 Hz. Although based on the sampling rate of the scanner, it can go as high as, for example, 0.25 Hz or 0.5 Hz. So there are lots of parts of the signal that people discard for the estimation of the bold-related activity. However, there has been very recent studies questioning this assumption that all the bold-related activity is very low frequency. And then these studies found traces of bold-related activity and bold-related conductivity up to the maximum possible frequency, which is Nyquist rate. For example, if the TR of the scanner is 2 seconds, then it would be up to 0.25 hertz, or if it's 1 second, it would be 0.5 hertz. So that question all the validity of these slow value or related activity, and that's one of the reasons, for example, the locality assumption has been challenged, if it's really actually capturing all the necessary time variation. Locality assumption takes different shapes in different methods. So, for example, for a sliding window, it's actually hidden in the choice of the window itself, because you can think of the windowing as a bandpass filter. So when you have a larger window size, you are just capturing a slower variation, and if it's a smaller window, then it's more higher rate. And there are also other approaches, for example, based on phase synchronization, CAP, or dynamic time filters, such as hidden Markov models or Kalman filter. They all have some inherited assumption of locality. Maybe sometimes it's not very obvious, but for myself, I figure out the best practice to investigate the underlying locality assumption is that if there's an input signal to this method. Now, if you randomly shuffle all the time points of this multivariate signal, how this method reacts to this approach. And our goal here is that design of a method that is invariant to this shuffling. So, I mean, it means that, for example, the actual location of the samples in time is not important, but only the coactivation between the dimension of this multivariate signal is important. So to better visualize that is, for example, assume the input signal, two-dimensional multivariate signal. Now, if we want to, the shuffling to design a method which is invariant to this shuffling is a method that works in the sample space regardless of the time. For example, before method work on the two-dimensional signal in time, so the time information is there. But here, but in the below in the sample space, we are removing the time and only look at the joint distribution of the samples. So if we design a method which is independent, which works in the sample state, then in fact we will have a method which we can capture the changes up to one time points.
You remove the order from the time.
No, we remove the order. So the time hidden is in the joint distribution. Yeah. So the goal of the method here is and design a method which is still capture dynamic dependence, and because we are assuming the Gaussianity, we can just by dependence we mean correlation or covariance, and then but in the sample space, not in the time position. Now, when we started studying this, we figured out that very interestingly, the dynamic correlation or dynamic covariance actually would be corresponding to the lines in this sample space. Because correlation means linearity of the joint distribution. And when you put all these when you look at all the samples in the sample space, still you can see correlation as a lines in this joint distribution at different lines.
Then we call it the direction of the higher variation.
Sorry?
Directions of the higher variation.
Not necessarily, because if it's a higher variation, then it would be PCA. But here the lines wouldn't be necessarily orthogonal. Yeah, it's a find the lines that best describe the data in the variation of the data without any orthogonality assumption. And now the question was how to find these lines. For example, here is the same time course that I showed you before. The half of it are very highly correlated. The second half would be negatively correlated. And when you put the samples in the sample space regardless of time, you can exactly see the patterns. This is the positive correlation, and this is the negative correlation. So if you are able to fit these lines that best describe this joint distribution, then you have the dynamic correlation. And we figure out the best way to do that is through sparse dictionary learning. So in fact, what the sparse dictionary tries to solve is that you have an input data Y, and then you want to find an overcomplete dictionary. The overcomplete means that the number of dictionary elements is much higher than the rank of the actual input signal to compensate for the sparsity assumption. So, and then there's an A, and the A is a mixing matrix, which how these elements are combined to explain the data, and it's sparse. So at each time point, the data is explained with very few number of dictionary elements, and that's imposed on the A. The nice thing about Yaesoubi is that instead of minimizing that, you can put it sparsity, you can put it as a hard constraint. For example, you can say at each time point, I want to explain the data only with one dictionary element. And it nicely maps to the desired property of our algorithm. Yeah.
I want to ask you, who invented this? The matrix like this, but by two columns multiplied like this. Who invented this notation?
Which notation? This
This
I invented.
Multiplied, that is the matrix. Who invented this notation is equal to that.
This
is very strange.
Yeah, I invented that, and there's a map.
This is not good for matrix community. Column by column to get it to matrix.
Yeah, there's a map. I will prove that why this line.
Just the black square and there's 4 items inside. That would be cool.
Okay. Oh, you mean you are talking about the notation or the map?
So if you type this out, maybe the result is different from that. But for me, I think the matrix notation like this is not acceptable.
Okay, the notation. I need to fix the notation.
That is two vectors. That is matrix, but you make it equal.
Oh, well, because it's a 2D vector, so I'm multiplying by a 2D vector transpose.
I understand your idea. It's just just a 2 black square inside the 4 items.
Yeah. And it's showing in the color map. The 4 items is showing in the color map. So in one case we have anti-correlation between nodes 1 and 2, in another case we have positive.
Maybe that.
Thank you.
That's right.
Yes.
Oh, there is one. There was one.
Oh, you didn't see.
Yeah.
Okay, so the notation I need to fix. Okay, so and you're going to edit the video, right? No. No. Okay. So,
It's all out there.
okay. So just to explain how it works on the better visualization. So here we have the input multivariate signal. It has n dimension and random variable, and the number of time points is t. And then with Yaesoubi, if we force the sparsity of the mixing matrix to be equal to 1, here is a mixing matrix. It means that each column of n has only one non-zero element. And then this is the overcomplete dictionary. And then when we decompose this multivariate signal into overcomplete dictionary and a sparse mixing matrix, then if you grab the data from the input data, which only correspond to one dictionary element, then through the map that I will just quickly review, it is shown that the covariance of that subsample would equal to the self cross product of the dictionary element.
So you
and these correspond to the lines. The dictionary element correspond to the line in the multi-line. So here I'm just using 2D, but it can be hypercube. Then it corresponds to the best lines that we can find, the linear patterns that we find in the joint distribution of the samples.
So, to my understanding, you for this figure, yes, I can do that. No, go back. Yeah. So there's two sets of time points. Between each of them, you have two direction, one direction.
It's actually one sample space, but there are some obvious linear patterns in this sample space,
Yeah,
and
linear
our goal is
pattern
to
from,
find this linear.
Different direction and from different time stuff.
Exactly.
Right, but I need to go forward. Oh, for one more. No. So for this matrix, for the third one, first row matrix, yeah, that's last matrix.
Yes.
For the seventh time point, the time point from the seventh subset,
Okay.
you
Yes.
assume the non-zero value on the same. I mean, you pick up the same the atom of dictionary.
Yes. So, for example, I pick one dictionary element, and then I go to the mixing matrix, finds the columns of the mixing matrix that have non-zero value corresponding to that dictionary element.
So
then I will go to the original data and then pick up those samples.
So you have the noise term in this model?
Oh no.
So in that case, you do the rank 1 matrix, so that if you do the correlation will be 1.
Let me tell you, because it minimizes the norm 2 of the error, so they go.
Okay, so you still have the
then it's a
noise.
Gaussian. Then it's already assumed there is Gaussian noise. And here plus some Gaussian.
But it's still very high correlation. Even if you have a noise term. If we calculate the correlation of the y on the same subset of time points.
On the subset of time, you mean this one?
Yeah, that's the sub matrix. The correlation of 35, I mean, because it's a rank 1 for estimation of this matrix.
Yes, it's a rank 1 estimation.
So I guess the correlation
Would be noisy?
no noise. I mean, even noise is not that strong, but it's very high of the correlation of the subset of sub matrix.
Yeah, I think my intuition says that if there is really a linear pattern, then I know what you're saying. You're saying that the sum of the error for the points belonging to this line would be huge because it's a subset of that, so we don't have enough statistics to estimate the correlation. But my point is that if it's really there, then this is the best decomposition that we can perform to find that dynamic. And the reason, so here, for example, we show that the covariance of those subset of samples, the rank 1 estimation, correspond to the covariance. And the reason is over here. So we have the input. So assume for sake of simplicity, assume that we have a 3-dimensional multivariate signal, X, Y, and Z. And then KSVD is actually enables us to decompose, to partition the samples of this multivariate signal into different partitions. For example, as we have chosen K dictionary. So these are partitions that are disjoint and all together explain all the time points. And then it's because of the sparse dictionary is approximating the samples belonging to that set, that specific subset, dictionary I, through the rank 1 decomposition, and then we can show that the covariance of this subset is equal to the variance of these, which is constant. It's just a scaling factor multiplied by this 1D vector, the cross product by itself. And that's why I'm showing that the covariance is related to the cross product of the dictionary elements. You can go through the math in detail. So for actual application of this method, we use it on an fMRI data. So we have a 405 LC participant subject. These are just biographic information. But the point is that the TR scanner was 2 seconds, so the maximum, the accuracy rate was 0.25. And then we decompose the data into 50 functionally meaningful component through a specialized state decomposition. It gives toolbox, and then we create our multivariate signal by putting the time courses for each subject and for each component in each row. So the column, so the variables would be the time course of different components, and the time points would be the subject and network time course. And then we just decompose it through the KSPD to find, again, very similar as I showed you before, to an overcomplete dictionary, and then the mixing matrix. Now the choice we have to make is that the dictionary is supposed to be overcomplete. So when we have the 50 component, the maximum rank of it would be 50. So the number of dictionary elements should be larger than 50. And through a cross-validation, we found out that maybe 150, the 150 dictionary would reasonably, with a low error, would reasonably explain the data. So we went with the 150 dictionary elements. And then we further compress, because we want to estimate the most dominant patterns of connectivity, we further cluster those dictionary elements into finite number of elements, which is here we chose 5. And then because the dictionary should be a scaling variant and signing variant, for the clustering part, we only use the angle between the two dictionary elements. And here are the 5 captured dictionary self-cross product of the dictionary elements. So because dictionary element is a vector, so it's of 50 dimension. And then we cross product each dictionary element by itself to find an estimate of the dynamic covariance. And these are the network patterns. The good thing is here we can see all the family or modularity of the resting state connectivity. But even to make our argument stronger, we compare the result to the one from K-means. So on the same data, we use a sliding window K-mean analysis. The way, for example, Ellen the tracking whole brain connectivity implemented, and then we can visually correspond the states that we find with majority of the state of the K-mean clustering. Now, I have also provided zoom-in version of the important modularity of each connectivity, and you can see that it corresponds nicely. So in many senses, it means that it's probably capture what is in the data. Also, it provides evidences that K-mean clustering is actually captured very good. That based on this choice of the sliding window, very good. It's doing good job on capturing the dynamic.
So basically, you identify the same states.
Most of
But
it.
you haven't showed that you have captured the same dynamic or better, or more information that wasn't captured before, right?
Yeah, it's not more information. I think it's best. The new approach that we propose is more relaxed regarding the assumption, because as I said, the main assumption of this method is a locality assumption, which is hidden on the choice of window. And people now keep saying that maybe the choice of the window is very crucial. Maybe with the choice with this window, you're losing higher rate changes at a higher rate. Now I'm proposing a method that is very relaxed. There is no locality assumption, but I'm showing that it still captures many important connectivity state by sliding window. So it's like a double sword. It's reinforced the findings of the K-mean, the sliding window approach, and also it shows that the validity of my algorithm to some extent.
How do you measure the changes in the states?
I'm going to explain.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So, but another point here is that there's 2 states. So this is a state 5 of our approach, and this is state 5 of the sliding window. So here, for example, this is where majority of differences happens. So in a sliding window, we always have some washed out state globally with connectivity, and it's very ambiguous. We cannot easily,
What's the different definition difference between your state 5 and the type of window state 5? What the definition?
But the definition
Yeah,
of
the,
the,
the
it's just
type
visual
of
difference.
we know that, but your state type, what's the definition of that?
Oh, it's one dictionary element cross product by itself. It's this. The states are captured from this operation cross product. A dictionary element by itself is corresponding to it. So this is what I'm showing as a connectivity state. Yes, of each state, 1 to 5. All of them are the cross products.
So how are you are saying that these two are the same state? The state 5 from your method and the state
And the visual connectivities, the visual patterns of connectivity are same.
This comparing fixed states that we capture when you flow through
The modularity that exists, yeah, the modularity of the
Oh, but they are not the same state.
not necessarily. I'm not saying that.
The order has to be
Yeah,
one
the
to
problem I will
one.
explain what is the major limitation of this method. But either way, so here, for example, this global connectivity, we don't know what actually represents. Does it represent the actual global connectivity of the brain, or maybe it's just a transitioning state, or maybe it's just it has there's some very spontaneous connectivity that the study window cannot capture and just average it with unrelated sample in the window. But here the components are more pronounced, and we are focusing our attention to this network. And interestingly, we saw that through some measurement that I'm explaining, hopefully I will do a good job, is that a state 5 is actually compared to other states more spontaneous. And how did I capture that? So I counted for each state, I counted the number of time points between consecutive occurrence of the same state. So for example, this method, so from here, I'm assigning one time point to this connectivity, and then the next time point, it may switch to another state or may stay the same. I'm counting the distance between the number of time points between consecutive occurrence of the states. For example, for this dictionary, it would be 0 and 1. So this is the distribution. And then I'm counting that, and then I'm showing the CBF of those values. And you can see that for a state 5, the distance between the consecutive occurrence of the state 5 is larger. So it means that it tends to be more spontaneous. So maybe that's the reason that K-means couldn't capture that, maybe it's just more spontaneous. We don't know. We need to provide more evidence. Also, so the conclusion is that we propose a new approach that doesn't use any timeless stamp, that doesn't have any requirement for locality assumption for any windowing operation. We perform that with a novel estimation of dynamic covariance in the timeless sample space. Also, when people say what is the actual application of these? So, yeah.
So far, I didn't see any timeless windows. Is it to mean a continuous wavelet transform or timeless?
Timeless sample, it means that just joint distribution of the samples here. For example, let me show you here. Here is the data time series, and then the joint distribution of these two data is here. There's no notion of time. We don't know, for example, when this sample has occurred. We are just removing that information and then just showing that, for example, maybe these 2 points, although they appear close to this space, maybe they are happening at very different time. That's why I say timeless. It's a joint distribution of the dimension of the multivariate signal.
I thought you mean timeless window is continuous.
Oh, no. Okay, maybe I will work on it. Yeah, it's hard to repackage. I mean, I keep repackaging these 4 different approaches to explain better, but it seems it's hard. It's a bit hard to find the best packaging to sell this, but either way.
So when the previous slide, when I asked you in the window approach, right? You identify 5 states, and then you control to spend more time in state 4 or this is equal in state 2. and then there is statistics to say whose state was more occupied
Yeah.
or not of that.
Yeah.
But I think I miss, maybe it means that you show this kind of quantification. Because
Yes. So,
getting from now is like you were able to identify similar states that were identified with a window approach. But I don't see how you quantify the dynamics.
so the quantification that we use, but now I'm a little bit suspicious about the way that maybe it brings issue, because that's why I try to skip that part because I need to think more about that. The quantification that I use was for each line, for example, assume for simplicity, just work with 2 dimensions. For each line, the sparse dictionary says that these samples belong to this line and these samples belong to this line. And then I just, for each line, I can just easily count the number of samples that has been assigned to each line. I can count it, similar to the sliding window. You count number of time points that has been assigned to each state. And then I did that, but my problem is that now I'm having less confidence because of the problems here, especially whenever the 2 lines are intersecting, then I'm not sure about the assignment. The assignment would be very chaotic and very noisy. So that's why I'm losing my confidence on the measurement that I use it. But either way, I did that measurement, just count number of samples that has been assigned to each state, and then I found, for example, negative age correlation to this state. That with increasing age, the subject spend less time. But I need to think more. Probably, for example, I was thinking maybe I can assign a confidence level on the membership of the samples to these, and then I just threshold on that confidence, and then work on those samples, count number of those samples. For example, it would be all the samples outside this circle, and then I will count number of time points, and I will say that, for example, these lines has attracted more samples than the other line. I need to think. It's a still work in progress. And yeah, so here, and also because we are broadcasting, the pattern for this work is 10, just for the broadcast. Okay.
I didn't see any similarity between your state file and the Windows state file. No similarity.
No similarity.
Which is correct? How to verify it?
It's hard. Yeah, I mean, the only way that I think is that, for example, do it with EEG and MEG to see if we can see some similar modularity.
No similarity.
Yeah, no similarity. That's why I said a unique state of each.
You could look at replicability too.
Replicability, yeah, that's good. I can work with any sort of that. It's replicable.
But you can go as the simulated data in ground truth and then by your.
Yeah, I did simulation and it works fine. I mean, it's quite good capture.
So did you compare the percentage of windows in 1, 2, 3, 4 states in your method versus just the percentage of windows?
Oh yeah, that's a good strategy. I mean, it's but I still, as I said, I still have problem with the occupancy measure of my
That's what I
approach.
was asking if you guys can show me the file, you know, where you show statistics.
Yeah,
See what-
because I don't have a good statistic and measurement yet, because of this area.
Yeah, you have it because you quantify it.
Yeah, I need to quantify that.
Usually for dynamic layer, like have 5 or 6, like this number of the states. But in the model and in the sparsity of the matrix, how do you control the number of this? I mean, the number of the non-zero line is.
Oh yeah, so that's why the tag to KSVD that allows me to do that. KSVD, you can just put the number of non-zero, the desired non-zero
It's non-zero on the line.
on the
or
column. Yeah, exactly.
It's a column, right? So it could be any position of this.
Any position up here, but only one should be non-zero.
Yeah, only one, but you count the number of lines which contain a non-zero value as a state number.
Yeah, that's what I tried first, but then because of this issue, because of this region, I think it's not an appropriate way.
I mean, if I understand correctly for the number of the rows which contain at least one non-zero.
Not the rows, the columns.
The columns.
Yeah, the columns. Is for each column has one non-zero element, but the rows cannot. Here, this row has
Yes, for this
non-zero.
alpha, the second row is a one state.
Yes, this is one state, one state, one state.
Yeah, so
they correspond to these dictionaries.
yeah, just curious because the non-zero could be any position of the column.
Yes.
So the number of states could be larger. I mean, you hard to control the number of states.
Yeah. Oh, the number of states is number of columns in the dictionary, which correspond to the number of rows. That it should be over complete, and I said that I use cross validation to pick 150.
Okay.
So it's initially 150, but then I'm compressing it even more.
But you fix the number of states, compare the result to the one of rows, right?
Yes, they're all fine.
That's because you fix the number of states.
And then I compress. Actually, initially it's 150 columns.
As I understand now here in this matrix, there are three states. Right?
I'm just highlighting three of it.
Yeah, I mean, so each row which contains at least one non-zero value, I mean, for the matrix.
For this, yes, at least
In the
one zero.
model, you actually constrain non-zero on each column, right?
Non-zero on each column. Yeah, the
So
condition
for,
is on
for
the
each
column.
column, non-zero value position could be
Anyway,
of this
anyway, which corresponds to picking different dictionary.
any of the position which corresponds
Yes.
to one column is E.
Mhm.
So if we, so for the M matrix, the non-zero value position could be any position, any
Yes.
rows.
Anyway,
So that means the number of states will be is pretty hard to control.
it's fixed. Here it is fixed.
Oh, that's column is fixed.
Yeah, the number of columns is fixed. It's an input to the algorithm. You can say
So you can fix the number of the columns
yes,
to 5.
yes to 5. Yes. But the dictionary should be over complete initially to find the best approach, and then I later compress it. Yes.
This is standard formulation of IC. I don't understand how you get your state start from here. Because this is the standard IC.
So I say it's different because they're all linear decomposition. They're all blind decomposition, I would say. But the condition, the constraint are different. For example, ICA don't have a sparsity assumption, but it has independence assumption. Here we don't have independence assumption, but we have a sparsity assumption to be able to blindly decompose. Yeah, they're all blind decomposition, I agree, but they're different assumptions.